This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Welcome to Season 3 of Truly Independent. I'm Garrett Batty alongside my co-host Daren Smith. Each week, we'll go in-depth with guests, industry experts, and we'll even share our own experiences, all with the goal of demystifying the independent film process. This season, it's all about the script, from the first spark of an idea to a polished final draft, breaking it down for scheduling, budgeting, and ultimately shooting. We'll walk through every step it takes to get from page to production. Welcome to Truly Independent. Welcome to another episode of Truly Independent. Daren, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Good. I'm always good. I look forward to these Mondays every week.
Me too, and I'm excited for our topic today. We got a guest here.
For our
you're
topic,
watching-
we have a guest. Joel Ackerman is with us. Joel, how are you doing, friend?
I'm doing great.
Welcome
Good.
to the show, Joel. It's good. I'm sure plenty of people here in Utah would be like, "Oh yeah, Daren and Joel probably know each other," but we've never met before.
Yeah.
So grateful to have you here, but also very excited to talk to you because you have a long and storied history in this industry.
Well, thank you. I love what you're doing with the podcast and obviously your work as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Yes. So our podcast, our whole goal is to demystify the independent film experience. And there are just so many obstacles and questions, and you get into it and you go, this is hard. Is this supposed to be this hard? And it is. And we're here to just say, here's why it is. So this season, we're talking about kind of development, getting the story right, the script right, and breaking it down into being able to right into pre-production. Joel, you and I spoke in a separate conversation recently, and I said, I'll be on this podcast to talk about everything that you do, because you do so much in exactly what we're talking about this season. So
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course.
Let's get into that just for a second. Can you just give us a brief introduction?
Yeah. So most people probably know me, if they know me from my work in commercials, writing and directing viral style ads, Aura Brush, Poopourri, those kind of style ads. And especially after the success of Poopourri, I started getting invited to do development. It was after the success of Aura Brush where I started getting invited to do development. So I developed Red Bull Music's first web series. And then after Poopourri, I got invited by Susie Cameron, who's married to James Cameron, to do some development on a documentary project that they're doing for one of their nonprofits. And now I currently work with Angel Studios doing development for them. So I've long been a story guy, improving scripts. And yeah, I've got all kinds of stories about that, even from my acting days, improving scripts or attempting to anyway.
For our listeners, Joel, really quick, I mean, I'm sure there are people who are well versed in what development is, and we've been talking about it a little bit on the show, but what's your kind of definition, or how do you see development? What does it mean to be a development exec or to do development at these different companies?
Well, from a high level, it really is picking the most compelling stories and then making sure that those stories are as compelling and as entertaining as possible. There's other aspects that I'm less involved in, like legal, where they're having to get rights or package the deal, whatever. But I'm really brought on to improve the script, make sure the story is really strong. And before that, also brought on to say, hey, is this a good story? Is this worth telling? Is this worth investing a ton of money into?
Yeah. Awesome.
So I might have a script, say, okay, I'm a screenwriter. I've got this idea. I wrote my first script, or I've got my 100-page, third draft. And at what point am I looking at, a development expert or a development individual like you to say, help me now make this better? Or is it even before that, before the draft?
Well, so usually, it's a good point. I mean, technically you're developing the thing, but usually it's when you get involved with some kind of studio, whether it's a production studio or whether it's a distribution studio, which Angel, who I work for, kind of bridges a little bit of both those worlds. But it's usually once you're involved with a studio and other persons. So if you're just working on your script, you could call it development because you're still developing the script, but it's not really development until you're kind of saying, all right, is there interest in making this? And if not a lot of interest, how could we make you more interested in making this? How can we make this? Or we know that there's interest in making this. Now let's make it really good. I don't know if that answers your question. Does it?
That does. Perfect. Yes. I'm in fact going to move on. So now as an independent filmmaker, what are some of the consistent, tripping points or areas of you like going, okay, as a development expert, this is a common thing that I see with independent filmmakers?
As a development expert, the most common thing I see with independent filmmakers is lack of talent. And that sounds really mean, but if you're just looking at the sheer numbers, that's true, right? Read one book, get the Screenwriter's Bible or something, learn proper formatting, and don't make dumb mistakes especially if you're going to take your script to a studio. Okay. Let's assume that everyone listening to this podcast is really talented. Then the problems become you're super passionate, but you don't see the holes because you're super passionate, or you don't see like, well, yeah, you're super passionate, but where's the market for this story? Why will people want to see this story? We can set aside talent and say the other thing that you see, even with the talented ones, even with Hollywood, this happens where they don't get, I don't know if it's because people just figure, oh, you're talented, so you must know what you're doing. For some reason, people don't get enough critique. The best writers that I work with and the best independent filmmakers crave the critique. They want you to show them what's wrong with their script. And they definitely don't get offended when you tell them what's wrong with their script. They are hungry for it. They hunger and thirst after improvement.
Awesome. How, from your side, because I could see both sides of this. I've done development and I've been on the writer side. How do you, as a development exec, quickly earn the trust of the writer or the writer director who you're working with? So that, because I think in my experience or in my mind, maybe I'm making it up, but like there's an instant where if they trust you, they'll listen to your feedback. And if they don't, then it doesn't matter how good you are, they don't trust you. And so they're going to get defensive about their project or their script. There's this spectrum of trust, and you got to click over to one side of it to where you can go, okay, we're just both trying to make this as good as it can be. Let's work on it together. How do you, as a development exec, get to that point with the collaborator?
Well, you can't force them to get to that point, but you're right. If they're wise, and I always tell people, like, give your script to everybody. If one person says something, and if it's only one person, then usually you don't have to worry so much about it. But if a lot of people are giving you the same feedback, but if you give your script only to people who don't know about scripts and they don't know how to diagnose a problem, or if they're just your friends and they're just going to tell you what they think you want to hear, then those people don't really count anyway. Now, they may give you useful feedback, in which case you should take it. But getting back to your question, Daren, I think the biggest thing I have found effective in getting people to trust me is something that I can't do. I rely on the other executives at Angel to build up the trust in me for me. Because if you go in and tout your own credentials and your own skills, it sounds, people don't believe someone who toots their own horn. But if the other Angel executives talk about, hey, this guy did development for James Cameron, and this guy's, written all this hugely successful media, and he kind of knows what the market's doing, then it can help them get there. But at the end of the day, I do really think it's does the writer have the maturity and their own wisdom to seek after and listen to anyone who says, hey, did you think about these things?
Well, I'll add to that, Joel. And I mean, I think that we've interacted briefly on an Angel project. And I don't know if you remember that or if you were involved, or at some point I was brought in to look at a script for Angel. And
yes, I recall.
It was a short series.
Yeah.
And Joel, you were attached as a development executive or something like that.
Yeah, producer who was overseeing development.
And the input that you made, I mean, the script was at a level when I received it. And then your development recommendations or changes or requests or input it just ratcheted it up to where it needed to be. And so, I mean, to answer Daren's question for you, without tooting your own horn, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right?
Well, thank you.
From what I saw, I was like, oh, he doesn't need to be built up. Just trust him once, and it will be worth it. It will make an impact.
Well, thank you. And, especially talking about the Angel ecosystem, because I'm well versed. Before I did development at Angel, I was creative director. And so especially if we're talking about within Angel's ecosystem, they have no reason to not trust me, because I think with the project we were talking that you're referring to, that project got made and then went through the Angel Guild voting process and passed with one of the higher scores, I believe, that the Guild has. And so, if they want to look at that, then they have no reason to not take my advice seriously.
Yeah. Or if you want to look at Aura Brush or Poopourri or any of the other things where you said, I do ads like that. And the correction is omit the like. You invented those ads. Other people are doing ads like what you're doing. And it's
right. Correct. Anyway. I did those ads. Thank you, Garrett. Yes, I did those ads.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you should own that, Joel. So we've got development with Angel Studios. You talked about developing a documentary with Susie Cameron, which sounds like it had its ups and downs or challenges.
Yeah. And so this is actually a really interesting story of development hell, which I'm sure your listeners can relate to.
Yeah, I want to ask about that and how you know when you're there.
Yeah, so this is interesting because independent filmmakers are trying to do many things, right? They're not on a studio payroll. So they're usually doing maybe multiple of their own gigs, whether that's in film or not. But they got a lot of things cooking, right, to pay the bills and bring home the bacon, and have the luxury of necessarily focusing on one project. Well, I get brought in to work for Susie Cameron, and there's a story behind that, but essentially they loved Susie and her whole family, Jim, everyone just loved the Poopourri video. And they quoted it and, all this stuff.
Just for point of reference, that's the video of the unicorn.
No. You're thinking of the Squatty Potty video. The Poopourri video is the girl in the blue dress sitting on a toilet and the backgrounds are changing.
Yes, she's got a British accent and it had 1 billion views or something like that. Just insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they bring me in to work on, so they're very passionate about helping the planet, right? As everyone knows they are. And they have a cool project called One Meal a Day. It essentially says, hey, people eat plant-based 1 meal a day. You don't have to give up all your meat and all your animal-based products, but just eat plant-based 1 meal a day for the planet. And they have this great idea. Susie's so passionate about this, and she has a great idea for a documentary, which I hope still will come out one day. The interesting thing is that there was no creative blockage. We had the concept. I developed very in short order, kind of the full length feature version and what this would look like. And I did it with Susie and she had great ideas and we put this together. This was way back in 2015, 2016, maybe. Anyway, between 2016 and 2017, maybe. But what got this thing stuck in development hell, which is really funny because it's like, this is the Camerons, literally James Cameron and his wife. They have like 6 kids or something crazy. And obviously he's busy with his things. And so it's kind of like the same thing that independent filmmakers can get stuck on. Like if you're a parent and you have kids, things are going to happen. And then COVID happened. And so it wasn't even like, oh, we're not finding the right story. It was just a function of time. And it would be like, she'd be like, I'm ready to go on this. And I'd be like, great, let's go. And then it'd be 9 months before the next time we're able to meet. And so life happens. To be honest, I eventually had to leave the project for other reasons. But like, I don't even know how you address that. I guess I just share it because I think it's interesting that even at the highest level, life may be the thing that like causes your development hell. Like it just is going to get in the way of your project sometime. Not that you shouldn't address it.
My experience with this is very similar in that I've kind of put it on, here's another spectrum for you, but like how hungry or what's the appetite for this project? So if it's hunger, it's the individuals that are involved. I've worked with directors and other writers and people that it's like a third tier priority in their life to get this project moving forward. And all three of us know what it's like to be hungry and to like want a project to move forward. It's the thing that we want to be spending all of our time on right now. So we're really, really hungry. We're on this far end of the spectrum. And if we partner with someone that's like, oh, I could take a little bite of that, that's fine. It's that dissonance will really put you in development hell pretty quick. But I think it's similar to a studio's appetite for a project. If it's we have to have this project, it's a bidding war, we got it, we're moving forward, we put $1 million into the script, we got to develop this thing and make it the best ever, then you're like, yeah, your hunger and appetite matches my hunger and appetite, let's go. And there's no hell to go through because you're aligned. But if it's a thing that was left over from the previous people that were running a studio and it's on a shelf and it's sitting there and you're the development exec on it, it's like, good luck trying to revive that thing because their appetite is over here with whatever they're going to be focused on during their tenure at that studio. And we see that all the time with movies that are in development hell and then get shelved, or even finished movies that get shelved for whatever reason, tax reasons or changing of the guard or whatever. And so that's something to look at early on if you're on the filmmaker side of this and going, oh, I really want these people to help me get this thing made. Well, make sure their appetite's the same, because if not, that's to me like what causes the development hell.
I love that analogy. I think it's really useful. And the analogy I always use is the battery. You know, you have to find someone who's going to charge the thing. And if they don't have the capacity because they're spread thin or whatever, then they're not going to be a good battery. And I see a lot of overlap between those.
I like that too.
It's always fascinating to me as an indie filmmaker, what triggers then that whatever project it is to get to that next step. And I've had projects with studios, I had independent projects. Somebody asked me yesterday, are you working on any fun movies? I didn't want to get into everything, but the answer is always yes. I've got 6 movies and I have no idea which one is going to take because everyone is going to be slowly pushed forward. And then something triggers, and I told him, I said, I'm working on like 6 movies, but I don't know if it's going to be one of those or something else that's going to come in. And you just never know. And you would think that, what an interesting concept that working with the Camerons, where there's really not an obstacle to stop, not the typical obstacle where we have lack of financing, lack of audience, lack of attachments.
Right.
Those are all clear. And so, you just never, what project to latch onto.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about the Camerons, which I'll say to their credit, is I always tell people for billionaires, they're incredibly down to earth and just really good people and sensible. You know, she's a Midwest gal. And so even though they really, of course, have no shortage of funds, they were still looking at this from a very fiscally responsible way. And they're going, well, it's a documentary, so we're not going to throw the whole bank account at it, and we got to be able to find a way to do it cheap. And that's great because it was probably one of the reasons why they were talking to me and not someone else, but like it was also one of the reasons why it was just spinning because they were really trying to squeeze the budget. So
Joel, you've described that situation. And is there a situation where you go, okay, this is development utopia, or this is, hey, we're in a good spot, and this is how development should work? There's back and forth, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think this is a question I'd love to get your guys' input on as well, which is how do you know the difference between development hell and just development, making sure, because we've all seen movies, everyone who's listening has seen movies that they go, well, that could have used some more development. And I think that all the time, especially as it relates to the script, not even necessarily pre-production. You couldn't have figured something out there. And I don't know if it's a function of time, like they just wanted to get to the production, so they didn't want to put in the time on the script, or if it's a function of politics. But to me, good production, to answer your question, Garrett, to me, good production is when you're seeing a strong idea, and actually I think it relates to the project at Angel that you mentioned, which I think have to keep confidential, but a strong idea, a strong concept that people want to see, so there's an audience for it, but feeling like we don't want to let these people down, so we got to get the script right. And if you're in that space where you're just churning on the script and you're making hopefully big, but acceptable is also incremental improvements on the script. But if things are moving forward and you're really improving the script, to me, whatever amount of time that takes is worth it, because the script is the embryo of the film, right? If you have that wrong, you're going to have a deformed,
right.
baby.
What is that? Okay, but that's such a subjective process, right? I've sat in studios in a writer's room where the executive is saying, okay, what do I need to do? I need to dictate lines to you? And you go, okay, now this is it. This is not constructive at all. You don't need me as a creator. You need me as a button pusher.
This is the challenge, right? It's like, first of all, and you guys know this, if you've met with a lot of executives, and you called me, Daren, a development executive. No one at Angel would call me an executive. The executives don't know what they're doing. Even in Hollywood, when I was taking meetings there, you really get the sense that they're looking for everyone else in the room to tell them what's good. And, maybe that's an unfair statement. I'm sure there are some great ones, but yeah, so gosh, Garrett, I don't know how it maybe goes back to Daren's question. You don't always know if you're getting the feedback of some executive who has a lot of money and influence but doesn't have good taste.
Maybe you already answered the question with your answer when you said that it's improvement. So if me as a screenwriter, I can identify, okay, this executive or this development executive is making, even if it's dictating dialogue, hey, we're improving the script. Great, man, let's keep going. But if it's just like, oh, let's have them say this instead of that, and you go, what are we doing? What are we doing here? That's where we probably derailed the development process.
I was just listening to a podcast the other day with Jason McGowan, the guy who co-founded Crumble Cookies. And I think of their story as very applicable to development, because what they were doing was A/B testing every day. They were focusing on their chocolate chip cookie, and every day they would have a batch that was the winner from the previous day and a batch with one thing different: dark chocolate versus semi-sweet versus milk chocolate. And every day they would go out and put it in front of the markets. They'd go to gas stations and have random people taste test two different cookies and vote on them. And they'd put polls up on Twitter and say, do you like semi-sweet or milk chocolate better in your chocolate chip cookies? And so every day they were making progress toward what they ultimately landed on as their hero cookie, which is always available every week, even though their menu changes every week. Not to get too into the weeds in their story, but to me, that's development. You're saying we have an outcome that we're aiming for, which is a project that's ready for the next phase, which is production. So what are we going to do between where we are and that milestone? A, can we identify where the gaps are? And B, can we make progress every single day until we feel with a very high level of confidence, yes, this is ready for the market, ready for production, ready for whatever the next phase is. And the spinning of the wheels or the talking in circles or the navel gazing that sometimes we hear about of like, well, what if the character was not how they are in the book, but they're a completely different character. So we need to ignore that, but we can't because you're our boss. And so that's where we get into this spiral of development hell. I think it's about making progress every day.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to also going back to your hunger analogy or the battery analogy. If you start to feel like you talk scientifically, our audience is liking this, but a lot is feeling, right? And it's like if you start to feel that hunger decreasing, it's not like, I mean, that's going to ebb and flow at some level, right? But if you really start it feeling like it's diving, it might be, if possible, time for a change of scenery. If you feel your battery dying, it might be worth going, maybe this is not the right fit with this studio.
I agree 100%. And I can look back on the projects I've done and identify those moments where I got that feeling and I either departed the project and was grateful I did, or I stuck with it and kicked myself for the next 2 years doing that project. So what a great observation to say, hey, it's okay to move on. I finally related to, you read the headlines of like, so-and-so left this project because of creative differences. And I was just thought, I don't understand that. You're getting to make a movie. Why would you leave the project? And finally, after going through this misery for a couple of projects ago, oh, that's what that means. And it's okay to leave a project, especially as an independent filmmaker.
Yeah, I think so. And part of my leaving the Jim and Susie Cameron project was this, right? And I think it's good to know when to say no, right? So, yeah, I agree.
This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Yeah. Joel, I get pitched projects every day, every couple times a week, from just lovely people that submit projects, and some I think are great, and some maybe could, even the pitch should go through a round of development. Here's one that came in, Joel. I just want to get your opinion just to make sure we're creatively aligned.
Okay.
Hi, Garrett Batty. High concept, uplift, family loving holiday movie. Director has similar film on Netflix. What do you think?
That was the pitch.
That's the pitch.
Yeah, I think it sounds great. I mean, how do you argue with it? I say send him a check.
No notes.
What would you? Okay, well, now that I know that's your reaction, I know I'm going to phrase my next angel pitch.
Forward that email over to Joel here because he knows what to
do. I mean, I think the one thing I might add is just if he could have added that it will be an award-winning film.
Yeah. Okay. I get the ones that say primed for $50 million box office. I was like, and you've done what in your experience? Like, and you look them up and they don't even have an IMDb, and you're just like, wow. I love the confidence, but it's not a way to get a pitch moving forward.
It's all right. The email address ends in Netscape.
Hey.
We're okay. We're okay.
Yeah, the other interesting thing about Angel Studios, to their credit, is and also to their waste of time, they are one of the few studios that looks at pretty much any pitch that comes to them. I mean, if they saw that, I would hope that they would not reply, but any legitimate pitch or script that comes across the board, it's one of the reasons why I read so many bad scripts, because they are willing to go, is there something here? Because their whole ethos is looking for the forgotten, the cast out, all of that. But I would say 999, I mean, like, there's so few of the cast outs that like go, oh, there is something here that, could be developed into something great. But every now and then. Garrett, have you ever had a pitch where you're like, yes, I love it, I'm going to run with it, I'm going to work with you?
I mean, I've certainly responded to some pitches that I'd be more interested in responding to. I don't know if I'm answering the way you want me to answer.
No, I'm just curious. I didn't have a way, so that's good. I mean, that means you're around enough people that they have something of value, that it's not just people wasting your time saying, my brother-in-law is going to
Yeah.
interesting story.
Well, no, I mean, I can look back. I mean, even the last movie that Darren and I did, The Faith of Angels, someone reached out. It was actually a producer reached out and said, here's an idea that was pitched to us. We can't do it, but it's a true story and something kind of down your alley.
That's awesome.
We developed it from there. But yeah, I mean, there is so much value in though what you do as far as developing, just taking it, the basic story and saying, look, is this a feature film or is this a Thanksgiving dinner time family story?
Right.
Or a high concept holiday family film.
Might be a high concept holiday family uplift.
Joel, if someone's listening to this and they go, his life sounds amazing and I want to do what he does, what's the path to become a development guy? Since you're not an executive, like do they have to go and create viral videos, or like is there a stereotypical path? What does that path look like?
Well, we haven't talked about this, but one of the reasons why I think that I'm good at development is because I'm a screenwriter at heart. That's what I do. And I worked really hard at that part, right? Then I also direct. So there's an understanding of more than just one part of the process. I direct, I act, definitely you don't have to follow my path. There's more than one way to skin a cat. But I would say, I don't know how someone can be really good at development if they don't know. Maybe you don't have to be a great writer yourself, but you really have to be able to identify what makes a good screenplay. Not just a good movie, but a good screenplay. Mm-hmm. And I would say study screenwriting, learn screenwriting, try screenwriting. Even if you're not going to be a screenwriter, like learn screenwriting, learn 3-act structure, like the back of your hand, and, do a lot of fun things too, like watch a lot of movies, and that's going to be part of it. And that's what I would say, I guess.
Joel, I think that's brilliant. I think that the thing I would add to that, again, to allow me to put words in your mouth.
Thank you, Garrett.
You have an incredible grasp of an audience response. What does an audience respond to? Right? Your viral videos are not happening without that ability.
That's true. And the challenge is, I don't even know how I learned that, and I don't know how you learned that.
That's growing up with 6 brothers, isn't it?
Honestly, maybe. Like, Garrett knows my family, and I grew up with 6 brothers, 2 sisters. And in our family, I've done a lot of therapy to learn that this is not actually healthy. But in our family, the way you got love, of necessity, really, if you have 9 kids and my dad was just working like a dog to provide for us, how do you give enough attention to each of those kids? I don't know. And so in our family, it became unless you got attention, or, unless you did something worthy of attention, you didn't get it, basically. So you had to be entertaining or funny or smart or good at sports or something to win the love and affection of your parents. We didn't know this was happening, but it was happening. And so maybe that's what it is. Also, my dad made us listen to marketing tapes, so we kind of learned how to market. But I don't know how to teach people to tap into what the public wants.
Well, I was being a little bit facetious, but it seems like a gift and a talent, and we're all better for it because you do such a good job with it. So yeah, it's fun to see your stuff. Joel, you've just wrapped your feature film where you're the actor in it, right? The lead.
Yes, independent feature film, ultra low budget.
Yeah,
a talented screenwriter here in Utah, Davey Morrison, who's probably a genius. He won Jeopardy a couple of times.
Literally went to Jeopardy and won it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he used his Jeopardy winnings to fund his ultra low budget film.
So cool.
No way.
It was a 15-day shoot. It was also a major feat of producing. It was not only a great script, but he funded this film on so little a budget. It wasn't like a chamber piece where it's 5 actors and 1 location. It was 20 locations, multiple actors, extras. So one of the best experiences of my life, really good kind of hard, the best kind of hard. It was so great to be back in the acting seat and realize how much actors do and have to do and feel all that insecurity that they feel.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of insecurity when I direct, at least. I can't say for you guys, but like, wow, it was just such a learning experience to be, because I hadn't done acted in a feature since college. So it'd been over 15 years, I think.
Well, it's fun to see a couple of the posts, and I'm excited to see it when it's ready.
Yeah, it's a dark comedy about a adjunct college philosophy professor going through a midlife crisis, and it's should be a good watch.
Sounds
Whether
good.
I blew it or not, if I blow it, it'll be entertaining because look how terrible an actor Joel
Watching
is.
some guy just flounder. But
Yeah,
that's what I'm buying a ticket either way.
yeah,
Well, as long as it's not a high concept, uplift, family loving holiday movie, because I don't want to spoil the one I'm making.
Oh.
yeah.
Joel, thank you so much for being here. It's been a joy. I'm taking what you've talked about as far as just development, and I'm working on a script right now, and I'm anxious and excited to be able to take it further, show it to people, crave that critique, that criticism,
Yeah.
knowing that that's going to make it better, and not just rush into shoot and, hey, how are we going to break this down and shoot and we'll fix it on the day. I'm like, no, let's make it good, take the time and develop it properly.
Well, and you guys are well connected enough that you can show it to people who will be able to give you good constructive feedback, or they'll tell you, hey, it's ready.
Yeah.
You guys know the difference between like a dealer's choice note where like, oh, I would do it a little differently, but it's good as is or whatever, and between a really substantive, this didn't work for me, there's a hole here or a problem here.
Yeah,
So,
keep an eye on your inbox.
okay.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
me on.
Yeah, it's a great convo. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you, they want to learn more, what you're up to? Where's a good place online?
So I also own a publishing company. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me is my email, joel@printimmortal, as in live forever, printimmortal.com. Or you can follow my Instagram, which is @printimmortal on Instagram.
Nice.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we'll check it out. This has been a joy. Nice to chat with you. Thanks, Joel.
Likewise.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good info.
Yeah, that's fun. I've always been intrigued by development. I do a lot of development, but not officially, right? Like it's part of my job as a producer when there isn't a studio that has hired and has on staff a development executive. Like it just defaults to me. And so I love development. I wish I could do more of it, but it was really cool to hear someone who's doing it as a job, as a career, full time, talk about not just the ups and downs, but like what's fun about it. It's very cool.
I think there's so much value as an indie filmmaker to say, look, these development experts, these guys that, an individual that's their focus. They're not trying to creatively take over your project. They're only trying to uplift and support it. And if you say, like, we're on the same team, we're doing what's best for the story, just as much as your DP is going to bring their craft to it, and your production designer, somebody in development is going to say, here are the holes, and let's avert them.
Well, to have someone who has a lot of experience, a lot of reps, and the bandwidth to sit down with your story and go, okay, from my experience and from my awareness as a development person, like this is where I think we are, and this is where I think it could be. And here are the gaps. And the best development execs can be very clear about what's going on and why it needs to change. And they're not going to tell you exactly how to change it. That's not their job. You're the writer. So they're going to say, look, this scene isn't working because it doesn't change anything in the story. It's just filler. This character is betraying who they are because you set them up this way in the first act, but in the third act, the way they win is this way, and we didn't earn that. Mm-hmm. And it's those kind of notes to say, look, here's the issue. I could suggest a couple of ways to address it, but it's almost like you wouldn't want to write and publish a book without an editor going through it. And you have development or structural editors whose job is, does this work as a whole entire piece? They're not going in and doing a line edit, which is the comma in the right place, those kind of nitpicky things. It's more of a structural, like overall, is it working? And if it's not, why wouldn't you want the help to make it really, really work before it goes to the next phase?
Yeah. Joel's the guy to do that. He has such an incredible proven history of taking things and making them better in a collaborative way.
Yeah.
Daren, how's your any updates on your projects?
None that I can report yet. I think in the next 2 weeks we're probably having a meeting, and so we're waiting. This is why you don't talk about projects until like they are greenlit and money's in the bank, because
Yeah.
I've had too many experiences in the past when I was co-running a production company where it would be like, oh, this investor is interested in funding our movie because they said, oh, it sounds interesting. We took that, and to us, it meant, being very naive, our movie's going to get funded tomorrow. It's like, no, that never happened. We'd start talking about it like we did, like it was, and we became the kind of hype man that you're always warning people about being. Luckily, it was kind of before social media was a huge thing, so we weren't posting about it online. We were just telling our friends. But yeah, I think I'm excited about it. It sounds like it's moving forward, but we're just kind of waiting until they have the bandwidth. They have the hunger, but they don't have the battery charge, to use Joel's analogy. Their battery is being drained by another project right now, so they're waiting until they can do a recharge and come over here and plug battery into our project and give it the energy it needs. So excited to talk about it when I can. And it'll probably be a few more episodes until that point, but it'll be fun because I'll be actively helping develop this project with a writer director and someone who is also really good at development. We could bring him on. We could talk a lot about how do you develop a short or a proof of concept. It'll be really fun.
Okay, well, I look forward to it. I won't ask you every time I see you. Then
I'll just give you
that I'm excited for it when you're able to share.
Yeah. And how about you? Are we update any? Wow.
Yeah. So Where the Dog Heals is moving right along at a good pace. I've finished the first draft and sent off the first 30 pages to the person on whom the story is based. We had a good conversation this weekend to get their feedback and their notes. They're very excited and encouraged by the direction the story's going. I'll send them incremental bits of the script as I get it polished. But it's moving right along, and we've had another donation come in through the Help Them See Foundation, which is great. So people are wanting to support and see faith-based movies, and the best way to do that is through the Help Them See Foundation.
Awesome.
As far as donating.
Sounds like we need to get Kirby on too and have you guys talk about this a little bit more in depth. It's a cool model for faith-based films.
Yeah. Well, we would certainly be willing to do that. We've got a couple of meetings scheduled this week of some high-value individuals, and hopefully we'll have something to report.
Awesome.
But we're moving forward. I mean, the goal is by the end of the month to be fully done with the script and ready for the next phase.
Very exciting. Well, cool updates. Keep moving forward. Make progress every day. That's my takeaway from today. It's just like, whatever you're working on, just keep going.
Great. Okay, Daren. Thanks, man.
See you next week.
This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Thanks for joining us. If you are enjoying Truly Independent, please share and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the journey. Today's episode was edited by Michael Bradford and produced by 3 Coin Productions.